Something strange is happening in the Puerto Rico Trench, the deepest point in the Atlantic.
Somewhere far beyond the reach of the sun's rays, where human beings hardly ever go, to the depths of the ocean.
27,000 feet down, beyond sunlight and sound, instruments picked up a pulsing anomaly, broadcasting signals, warping local readings, even nudging gravity. The deeper the team probed, the stranger it became, as if something vast and aware waited in the dark. What began as a routine survey spiraled into a global riddle. What is the source of the signal? How can anything hidden under miles of water bend the rules we live by? What they found in the Puerto Rico Trench isn't just unexplained, it's unsettling. And if it's real, it's about to change everything. The gravity glitch beneath the Atlantic. There is something off about the Puerto Rico Trench. We are talking about the deepest point in the entire Atlantic Ocean, which is 27,480 feet straight down. That's deeper than Mount Everest is tall. But what really caught scientists off guard is how light everything seems above it. For decades, satellites measuring the Earth's gravity field have picked up a strange dip, a measurable drop in gravitational strength right over this trench. Sea level dips slightly, about 10 centimeters lower than the surrounding ocean. To the human eye, nothing looks wrong. But to the instruments watching from orbit, the ocean is not sitting flat like it should. It's being pulled downward. And that makes no sense here. This kind of dip is called a gravity anomaly, and usually they are tied to something big, like a massive undersea mountain or a huge mineral deposit underground. Dense stuff beneath the surface bends the gravity field and slightly reshapes the water above it. But the strange thing is that there is no mountain, dense ridge, or any volcanic bulge beneath the Puerto Rico Trench. Just the trench itself, a steep, narrow crack where the North American plate is being shoved under the Caribbean plate. It is a known subduction zone, yes, but nothing about it explains this much gravitational weirdness. In fact, what scientists expected was the opposite. Subduction zones often have less mass near the top and more below. That could lead to a normal gravity reading or a slight increase, not a sudden drop. Yet here we are, and this is not new. As early as the 1970s, researchers noticed that objects falling into the trench were accelerating strangely. Instruments free-falling toward the bottom moved in ways that didn't quite match the math. Some thought it was an equipment error. Others shrugged it off as noise in the data. But then came the satellite era. In the 2000s, data from NASA's GRACE mission showed the trench had one of the most extreme negative gravity anomalies ever recorded on Earth. A reading of negative 380 milligaules. For context, a few milligaules is considered significant in geophysics. Negative 380 is a giant red flag, and no one had a good explanation. There were guesses, of course. Some said it might be a collapsed piece of ultra-dense rock. Others pointed to ancient tectonic scars, buried deep and long forgotten. But none of those theories explained how such a compact region could generate such a powerful gravitational dip. So naturally, scientists started diving deeper, and what they saw next was one of the most shocking phenomena. The organism that responded to sound. In 2019, an international oceanographic team launched a deep-sea acoustic monitoring project to find out what was happening inside the deepest part of the Atlantic Ocean. The answer came through sound. They deployed hydrophones, which are underwater microphones designed to capture the full audio spectrum of the deep. These instruments were dropped into some of the most remote points of the trench, descending to depths of over 8,000 meters. They were expecting standard geological noise from things like shifting plates, undersea tremors, distant whale songs, and maybe the occasional landslide. For a while, that's exactly what they got. But then one hydrophone, which was placed in the deepest section of the trench, picked up a patterned, low-frequency pulse. It was a rhythmic 45-second-long pulse that repeated every 9 minutes. Exactly. This kind of precision doesn't come from rocks cracking or water currents moving. Seismic events are messy. They are loud, unpredictable, and come with aftershocks, but this pulse was calm and repeating like a metronome. And that's when scientists started to worry. They ran diagnostics, and then found out that the pulse had an electromagnetic signature. At first, they thought it was noise from their own hardware, but repeated tests ruled that out. When the equipment was isolated and powered down, the pulse kept coming. The strange thing is that the frequency of the sound was clustered in specific bands of 12, 18, and 27 hertz, each evenly spaced. This was unnatural. Nothing in known marine biology or geology generates signals in these patterns with this kind of consistency. The signal got stronger the deeper they went. It was fixed in place, and its location was directly above the gravity anomaly. At first, this seemed impossible. If gravity were pulling harder there, something heavy must be buried beneath the seafloor. But scans showed nothing obvious. In fact, the seafloor was smooth in that area, almost suspiciously smooth. They ran a full multi-beam sonar sweep to get better topographic readings. That's when they spotted it. Near the trench's abyssal plain, a flat feature started appearing on the sonar returns. It was geometric, sharply defined, and too precise to be natural. Instead of jagged terrain or scattered debris, the sonar showed something with straight edges and perfect symmetry. It looked like a hexagon. There were 6 equal sides carved into the seafloor. At first, they thought it had to be an error, but multiple passes by different vessels using different systems confirmed the same thing. There was a structure, over 200 meters wide, embedded in the ocean floor, and the strange rhythmic pulse was coming from right above it. More instruments were dropped, including hydrophones, magnetometers, and electromagnetic sensors. They all lit up. The closer they got to the center, the cleaner and stronger the readings became. At this point, researchers were looking at an active zone, something that was transmitting sound, bending gravity, and affecting the local magnetic field. But what was it? Between 2021 and 2022, at least 6 separate research missions, run by universities, national ocean agencies, and even privately funded expeditions, started studying this creature. In 2024, the Pelagia X-7 autonomous deep-sea drone was deployed with shielding and redundant recorders to counter whatever was causing the erasures. It managed to operate for hours, mapping the trench floor and capturing clear readings of the hexagonal structure. Then, mid-dive, the live feed froze for exactly 4 minutes. When it came back, the drone was drifting slowly past a large, unidentified lifeform hovering close to the trench floor. It wasn't behaving like any known deep-sea animal. Its movement was slow and deliberate, and it seemed positioned directly above one of the hexagon's radial grooves. Samples later recovered from the drone's exterior showed biological material with unique electrical properties, specifically electrolytic vesicles capable of storing and releasing energy. This suggested the organism could interact with electromagnetic fields, and if that was true, it might explain the gravitational anomaly. Before the scientists could confirm this theory, the strange organism disappeared. They got no electromagnetic readings after that. If you thought the sound was strange, the other life forms they found nearby were even stranger. Creatures built for total darkness. Most people assume nothing lives that deep. After all, at more than 27,000 feet, there is no sunlight. Temperatures hover just above freezing, and the pressure is extreme, over 1,000 times the pressure at sea level. But somehow, life survives. Marine biologists sent down baited cameras and submersibles. They expected to find scavengers, maybe some worms, maybe a few shrimp-like creatures. What they got was a dark, alien-looking world filled with creatures that had completely adapted to the trench. Let's start with the giant isopods. These are huge crustaceans, sometimes up to 20 inches long, crawling across the ocean floor like armored tanks. These creatures are ancient, hardy, and can survive for years between meals. They were creepy, sure, but expected to be found here. Then there were the glass octopuses. They were almost invisible, with internal organs you could see through their transparent skin. They floated through the water like ghosts, perfectly adapted to escape detection in a pitch-black world. But what really caught scientists' attention was not how the creatures looked. It was how they behaved. In the deepest parts of the trench, right near the origin point of the pulse, these animals were gathering, staying within a specific radius of the trench floor, and returning to the same zones again and again. Some moved in arcs. Some stayed strangely still. But their patterns were not random. And then came the jellyfish. Now, bioluminescent jellyfish are common in the deep ocean. But these were different. They flashed 3 blue pulses in a row, then stopped. Then, minutes later, another series of 3 flashes. Scientists reviewed the footage over and over. It matched the timing of the pulse. At this point, the marine biologists couldn't explain what they were seeing. They collected water samples, took salinity readings, and monitored methane and sulfur concentrations near the trench floor. All seemed stable. You see, life down here has clearly evolved on its own terms. In the absence of sunlight, most of these creatures do not rely on photosynthesis in any way. Instead, they rely on chemosynthesis. It is a process where bacteria use chemicals like methane or hydrogen sulfide, which seep from the seafloor, to produce energy. These bacteria form the foundation of a trench ecosystem that could operate entirely cut off from the sunlit world above. Some species show adaptations that are even stranger. Many have pressure-resistant proteins in their cells, which prevent the crushing forces at these depths from destroying their internal structures. Others have enzyme systems that function only in cold, high-pressure environments. To put the mystery of gravitational anomaly, acoustic interruption, and the strange creatures in perspective, you have to understand that the Puerto Rico Trench is not the only place that has forced scientists to rethink deep ocean life. The Mariana Trench in the Pacific, which is the deepest known trench on Earth, has its own surprises. You will find giant amphipods, snailfish, and microbial mats here clinging to rocks more than 36,000 feet down. The Tonga Trench in the South Pacific is home to unique snailfish adapted to pressures that would flatten most submarines. Even the Java Trench in the Indian Ocean has made strange species adapted to darkness and chemical-rich environments. Every time scientists think they have reached the limits of life's adaptability, a trench proves them wrong. The truth is, we know far more about the surface of the Moon or Mars than we do about the deepest parts of our own oceans. More people have walked on the lunar surface than have visited the bottom of these trenches. And with the Puerto Rico Trench, the unknowns are not just about biology. They are about physics, geology, and forces we don't yet understand. We can measure the pulses. We can see the animal patterns. We can detect the gravitational anomalies. But tying those things together into a single, clear explanation is still out of reach. For now, all we can say is that something about this trench is attracting life, shaping its behavior, and possibly influencing its evolution, and no one yet knows how or why. Now tell us, how do you think that strange organism was able to bend gravity, or was it due to some other phenomenon? Share your opinions in the comments below, and if you want to stay updated on the most recent discoveries and the mysteries scientists are still trying to solve, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Goodbye for now.